welcome back to another How To Theater. My name is Laura Parker. I am the costume shop manager and costume designer here at NC State University. Our How To Theater series is all about how theater professionals create theater. So this week in the costume shop, we're going to be going over wigs. And wigs is kind of a really big thing. You can take a whole semester-long class on wigs. So we're going to go over the basics that most hobbyists or most actors might need to know in order to wear or prepare or maintain a wig. I want to share some resources with you because unfortunately, there are not a lot of wig classes available locally if you're in the Raleigh area. It tends to be kind of a hit or miss thing. So a lot of people who do wigs are self-taught. And there are a lot of tutorials online. You can go onto YouTube. There are websites. You can take master classes online and that sort of thing. But there are also a lot of really great books out there that you can purchase, and they'll guide you through the entire process. My favorite book is this Wig Making and Styling by Martha Rukowski and Allison Lowry. This is a phenomenal book. It will legit take you through care, maintenance, styling, construction. If you wanted to build a wig from scratch, this book is going to show you how to do it, styling, kind of the whole 9 yards. So if you're just getting into wigs, or if you're interested in learning kind of the basics, this is a really, really phenomenal resource for just general overview of wigs and wig styling. If you're into more specific wigs, this book, 18th Century Wig Styling by Kendra Van Cleve, is a wonderful, wonderful resource for this very, very specific style of wigs. Building these very, very tall 18th century court wigs is definitely an exercise in and of itself. A lot of the techniques that she talks about in here can also be applied to other types of costume wigs. If you're building a larger wig for a specific costume, if you're doing drag or that sort of thing, the techniques that she talks about in here can be applied to other things. So this is a really, really great resource for these kind of larger scale wigs. And then the last thing we have is this book called Historical Wig Styling, again by Allison Lowry. And this is going to take us through Victorian to the present. So she goes through kind of decade by decade, and she's giving you very, very specific style techniques that are indicative of each era. Of course, everybody's going to style their hair a little bit differently, but this is going to give you kind of the basics. So if you wanted a very classic 1920s hairstyle versus a classic 1940s hairstyle, she's going to give you the tools and the techniques that are going to be really, really useful for that. So this is another one of my personal favorites. I use these books legit all the time. I love them. All right, so let's talk about wigs. Let's talk about these things that we put on our head. There are lots of different types of wigs. If you go to the wig store, if you shop online, you may see something called a 3/4 wig. And unfortunately, I don't have an example of those here. We don't tend to use them here in a university theater. But a 3/4 wig is going to be a wig that is styled so it sits back from your hairline. So it actually is going to sit, about at the crown of your head, maybe a little forward, maybe a little back, and give you the length or the style off of the back. And a 3/4 wig can be a really wonderful wig if an actor, or if you want to use your own hair to kind of blend in to that wig. So you're going to leave the front of your hair out of the wig cap, and then you're going to blend that back into the wig. So it can be a really great style. It can make a wig look really, really natural very, very easily. We don't tend to use them in here just because they are a little more complicated to use, and we don't want to put that pressure on our actors because they got lots of other stuff to think about. So we want to make their job as easy as possible. But they can be a really, really great tool if you're using it for personal styling, or if you're using it for a costume or that sort of thing. They're also great for stacking wigs, or for sewing two wigs together, and we'll talk about that later. The next type of wig we're going to talk about is wiglets, which is an adorable name. I love the name wiglets. And wiglets are going to be these cute little hair pieces, and you can see it's just a piece of the mesh. It has a couple of little combs there, and then it has a big old stack of hair right on top of it. And these little wiglets are a really quick and easy way to add a little bit of extra hair, a little bit of extra bounce to a wig, or to your own or to your actor's personal hair. So if you just needed to give a little bit of a boost on the back of somebody's hair, if you found a wiglet that matched their hair color pretty closely, this would be a great way to just add a little bit of extra style, a little bit of extra bounce to the back of their head. The other style of wiglet is going to be it looks like a little mound, a little mushroom mound. These little bun covers. And these are really, really great, again, to either use on wigs or use on your hair. And this is a great way to add a very, very refined period style very, very easily. So if you pull your hair up and you just kind of put it in a little messy bun underneath that, and you pop this pretty little braided wiglet on top of that, you have a very refined style very quickly, very easily. It's no muss, no fuss. So wiglets can be a really great way to just add something to either a wig or to your own personal hair. So the next big wig we've got, excuse me, is going to be a hard front wig. And I'm going to take our little friend off of the wig stand here. Where are her pins? All right. So a hard front wig is going to be a wig you can see on the front here where it has a very definite defined edge. The hair is coming out of this very, very hard defined edge right there at the front of the wig. Hard front wigs can be, they have their pluses and their minuses. They usually come pre-styled. So this is a 1920s, 1930s wig. I've used this wig for a couple of different decades. And you can see how it has a really, really nice defined style. That curl is going to stay in place right there. But the trick with these hard front wigs is putting them on your head so that they look natural. So you're not kind of stopping your hairline right at, right on your forehead. And we'll go through how to put these on to make it look a little more natural. But these tend to be a little less expensive than the next style of wig that we're going to talk about. And these are very, very common, especially if you get into period style, period costume wigs. The budget conscious ones tend to be the hard front wigs. So that is one style of wig. All right, and the other style of wig is going to be what's called a lace front wig. And so a lace front wig, I'm going to walk up to the camera to show you this because this is pretty delicate. It's hard to see from far away. But you can see there is this little piece of mesh at the front of the wig, at the front of the hairline. And what that little piece of mesh does, this is the lace. This is called the lace. And you can see how the hair is tied into that lace front there. So it's creating a much more natural hairline. So this hairline is going to gradually increase as it goes back towards the base of the wig. And a lace front wig is going to give you the most natural look that you can probably get with a wig. There are some tricks with putting these on to make them look natural. I've got her on crooked here. And we'll go over that when we go over how to put on wigs. But the lace fronts, they tend to be a little more expensive because it's a little more work to build that hair into the lace there. But they are really fantastic wigs and they can create a really, really natural hairline. So those are the types of wigs. And so you can purchase wigs all over the place. If you are here in the Raleigh area, there are at least 100,000 beauty stores, wig stores throughout the triangle that, that sell all sorts of wigs at all sorts of varying price points. There are shops online where you can purchase specialty wigs, you can purchase more natural looking wigs, you can purchase cosplay wigs, period style wigs. And then honestly, I buy a lot of my wigs for us here at University Theater on eBay. There are a lot of great independent stylists who sell on either eBay or Etsy, and then a lot of the costume supply wigs that specialize in more period styles tend to sell either on eBay or online. So there are lots of places where you can source wigs. The trick is to find one that is going to match your style, match the hair color that you want, and is going to be within your budget price point. Let's see. Oh, let's talk about the type of hair. So we've got lots of hair here, right? But there are lots of different types of hair that goes into wig. And the primary difference that you're going to run into when you're shopping for a wig is going to be synthetic versus human hair. And both have, again, pluses and minuses. Synthetic hair is going to be the most common, and it's definitely going to be the most economical. And there are various qualities of synthetic hair out there. If you go into a wig shop, you will very quickly see that some of the synthetics look more natural and some look very plasticky and very kind of cartoon-like. I tend to buy synthetics for us here at University Theater just because A, they're economical, but B, they hold their style really well. If you set that style, if you train that style into the wig, if it's a synthetic, it's not going to go anywhere until you wash it and completely reset and reheat style it. So I do really like the synthetic wigs. The trick with the synthetic wigs is that the majority of them will not take direct heat application. So you can't just get your flat iron or your curling iron out of your bathroom or your dressing room and start going to town on those synthetic wigs. They are plastic. They will literally melt. Some of them won't though. So if you look on the inside of each of your wigs, there's typically going to be a tag, just like the care tags on your clothes, and they're going to tell you exactly what the wig was made of, and they're typically going to tell you whether or not it can take direct heat styling or not. This one is a synthetic human hair mix, but it does not tell me whether or not I can actually use direct heat styling on this, so I would not. Unless the tag specifically tells you that you can use direct heat styling on it, you're going to assume that you cannot, or else you're going to have a melty wig and then you're going to be super sad. And nobody wants to be super sad with a melty wig. So that's something that you just need to be really careful about. But there are lots of techniques, and we're going to go through some of them here today, about how you can set these styles into the synthetic wigs. And a lot of it is honestly kind of oldie-timey hairstyling techniques. So if you talk to your mom or your grandmom about how they set their hair back in the 50s and 60s, a lot of those techniques are going to be what we're going to use here today to set these synthetic wigs. So that's a lot of fun, actually. So just be careful with that. All right, so how do we take care of these things? What are we going to use to take care of these things? I have a table full of tools here, and we're going to go through some of them pretty quickly. You're going to want a variety of brushes and combs for different applications. Our standard kind of fine rat tail comb, this is a really essential wig styling tool because the fine tooth comb is going to help you really kind of smooth down your style and get into some really light, delicate areas. And then the rat tail is going to help you kind of work your way through the hair very quickly so you can section it off either for styling or applying rollers. So a rat tail comb is a super useful tool. And they come in a couple of different styles, and you can get a wire rat tail or the plastic rat tail. I like having both. A hair pick can be really useful, especially if you're styling wigs that are mimicking natural hairstyles. This can be a really useful tool. A larger tooth comb rat tail comb can also be really, really useful. I've got hair in it. I used this one to prep some of my wigs today. That wider tooth is going to go through the synthetic hair a lot cleaner and a lot more easy. The synthetic hair does tend to tangle up much more easily than natural hair, than human hair. So having a wide tooth comb to work through those tangles gently is going to be really, really helpful. A big old slicker brush, one of these giant paddle brushes. You can buy them with natural bristles, boar head bristles. This one is plastic with synthetic bristles, but these big paddle brushes are going to, again, help you work through tangles very, very quickly, and it's going to help you smooth down your wigs very, very easily. Let's see, what else do I like to use? I don't really like this one. I don't know why this one's here. This adorable, teeny tiny little slicker brush. This has mimicked, these are plastic, but mimicked boar bristles. And this is used to smooth down all of those flyaway hairs. So I've got a ton of flyaway hairs on my real head. Flyaway hairs happen on wigs very, very frequently as well. So this is going to help smooth down those styles really, really nicely. Yeah. So, any sort of comb, any sort of brush that you're going to use on your hair is going to be a helpful tool for you to use on wigs. But I think that the really basic ones that I recommend, that I use all the time, are going to be a larger comb with very, very wide teeth. Again, one of those rat tail combs with very, very narrow teeth, the big old paddle brush, and the slicker brush. Those are the four that I tend to reach for most often. Everything else I kind of pick up on an as needed basis. All right, so what else do we need? We need hairpins, bobby pins, all of those pins, all those things that are either going to keep the wig on your head or going to keep the style in your wig. So we have a variety, excuse me. There we are. We have a variety of different bobby pins and hairpins and clips that we use for both styling and for applying the wig on the head. The most common ones that I like to use are going to be just your standard 2-inch bobby pin, and then a much larger bobby pin. So I'm going to hold these up so you can kind of see the difference. The one in this hand is going to be smaller. The one in this hand is going to be much bigger. You really typically are going to need both of those sizes to apply the wig onto your head. The smaller bobby pins are really useful to kind of get into more delicate areas and to help flatten your hair down before you put your wig cap on. And the larger bobby pins are going to be really, really useful for actually securing the wig to your head. These offer a lot of security and a lot of control, especially if you're acting, if you're doing something on stage, if you're in dance, if you're doing stage combat, if you're rolling around on the floor in your wig. Having your wig very, very firmly secured is going to be essential. There's nothing more terrifying than being on stage and feeling that wig start to slip off your head. So we use those very, very frequently. I like to have on hand these little snap clips, these little guys. You probably use them when you were in middle school, but these are really, really great, great clips to, again, help secure your hair down to your head to keep it nice and flat before you actually put on your wig cap and put on your wig. A couple of other clips that we use, typically more for styling purposes, but you may need to use these for application. We've got these little prong clips, these little duckbill prong clips. They're very, very strong. They're very, very sturdy. And then we have much longer versions of that, the longer duckbill clips. And these are really useful, mostly for styling purposes, but every once in a while you need to get up in a weird spot to secure a wig down. So that's going to be really, really helpful. So just having a variety of clips and bobby pins on hand is going to be useful, because honestly, you never know what you're going to need, and this stuff is really inexpensive. If you go again to one of these beauty stores, you can pick up, you know, a package of clips and a package of bobby pins for, you know, less than $5. They're very inexpensive tools to have on hand. The other thing that I use very, very frequently, mostly for styling purposes, are going to be these tiny little rubber bands. So they're super, super tiny. They're about the size of a dime, but they are very, very stretchy. And so these are really, really great to use for styling purposes, to help set a style. If you have braids, or if you have the end of a bun that you need to kind of tuck under something, these little elastic bands can be really, really helpful. And again, this particular box was $1 for 500 of these, so they're basically disposable. And rather than trying to take them out, I tend to just cut them out and throw them away, because they also don't hold their stretch much after you use them once or twice. But having a box of those is really, really great. And they come in different colors. These are black and white. I use those quite a bit. And then you can also get clear ones, which are great for lighter hair. If you're doing a gray wig, or if you're doing a blonde wig, the clear ones are fantastic for that. All right, what else we got? We have, if you look on any sort of hairstyling website, you may see people talk about rats. We're not talking about those cute little pets that people keep, or the things that live in people's sewers. We are talking about these things. So rats are going to be either, this is kind of a squishy, foamy sort of rat. It's got a lot of flexibility to it. It's very bendy. And this one is legitimately a piece of foam and has a wire in it, so that you can control exactly where it sits or what shape it is. So rats are going to be really useful if you are setting a style into a wig that has any sort of bulk to it, or has any sort of a rolled function to it. If you're doing a kind of a roll at the back of the head, if you're doing victory rolls for a 1940s play, anything where you want to add in some kind of tubular density, rats are going to be really, really helpful. I do use these very, very frequently because they add a lot of bulk. They give you something to kind of form the hair over, so you get a nice, even, soft, smooth curve. And they're very lightweight. When we're building our wigs, when we're styling our wigs, we're going to try our best to keep the weight of them as low as possible, because they do have to balance on people's heads, and they can be really heavy, and some people are very sensitive to that weight on their head. So as a courtesy, because we like to be nice to people, we try to use things that are going to be as lightweight as possible. So rats are really, really great to have in your toolkit. And honestly, I've been in a pinch where I have not had a rat and I needed to style a wig. I needed to do it right then. I will use things like cotton wadding. I will use quilt batting. I've done that before. I have legitimately used crumpled up plastic bags from the Harris Teeter. Like, you can use a lot of different things, a lot of found objects to help build up that bulk in your wig if you don't have a rat on hand. But the rats are easier, so I like to have those. All right. We also have rollers and curlers. And there are at least 500,000 different types of rollers and curlers out there. I'm going to go through a few of the more common ones here. We have the first kind, and I like to use these quite a bit. So these are going to be, it is a metal spring covered with this plastic mesh. So these are really flexible. They have a lot of movement to them. And these are really easy to pin through. And we'll go through how to set rollers onto a wig later on in our time together. but these are really, really easy to use. And I like them because they're flexible and because you can get heat through them really, really easily when you're steaming or setting a wig. So these are fantastic for that. You also see these hard plastic ones, and these are really, these are easy to use. They're great for when you need to have a lot of density to your curl. They're much less flexible than the wire ones. And they're a little harder to use because they are kind of smooth plastic, so it's hard to catch them. But what's great about these is that they do have the little holes in the curler, and when you're styling a wig on a head form, instead of using these little clippy things, which are kind of awkward, you can legit take a pin, and pin straight through those holes on the curler into the head form and secure the curler that way. You only want to do that on the head form. You don't want to stick pins into actual people's heads, but it's really helpful for styling wigs when you're doing it remotely. The other really common type of curler you see are these little foam curlers, and I like to use these as well just because they're really quick, they're easy to use. You don't need any additional pins or rods to hold them onto the curl. They've got this little kind of door opening thing that helps secure the curl in place, and just a little piece of foam there to act as the curler. These are soft and flexible. These are going to give you a little bit of a softer curl than your hard curlers here, but these are really useful as well. And because they're foam, again, when you're heat setting with steam, you can get quite a bit of heat through the hair. It's going to set really, really nicely. So those are the primary types of curlers that I like to use. You may also see people using little Perm Rod Curlers. Again, these are the little hard plastic ones. These are really great if you're trying to get very, very tight ringlets. Use these a lot for Victorian styles, for late 19th century styles where you've got those really cute little ringlets framing the face. These can be really useful for that sort of thing. Also really useful for 1920s styles when you want to get a lot of curl really, really defined. So those little kind of perm rollers are helpful as well. All right, what else we got? Wig styling essentials. So as we're styling our wigs, we're going to need a lot of different products and a lot of different tools. So we've gone over our combs, we've gone over our clips and our bobby pins and our curlers and that sort of thing. Now we're going to talk about the other things that we use. So if you are styling a wig, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to fit your face just straight out of the box. You're going to have to do a little cutting, you're going to have to do a little styling to make it look clean and make it look natural. So you're going to want to have a couple of different types of scissors on hand to style your wigs. So I typically am going to use just scissors, regular scissors. You can buy more fancy hair cutting scissors. I tend to not do that. I'm not, honestly, not the world's best hair cutter, but you know, kind of regular standard hair cutting shears are also pretty useful. But for most applications, I like to use just legit our standard scissors. The other style of scissor, which I use really, really frequently when I'm styling wigs, is going to be a thinning shears. And so hopefully you can see this. But you can see one side, one blade of the scissor has looks like a comb almost, and the other blade is just a standard scissor blade. And what happens is when you use these scissors, it's only cutting every other strand or every other chunk. So this is a really, really great way to, if your wig is too thick, you can use these thinning shears to go in and take a lot of hair out very, very naturally so that it falls really, really cleanly, because it's only cutting out kind of every other little chunk there. It's not going to look kind of like that blunt sort of cut. It's going to look really, really natural. I also like to use this if I'm styling bangs or if I'm styling kind of the edges, because again, you know, most styles, you're not going to want that super, super straight, blunt cut. You're going to want something that has a little body to it, has a little movement to it. And so these thinning shears with the kind of comb edge on one side and the standard blade on the other side, these are really fantastic shears to have in your wig kit to help you get a really natural look to your wigs as you're styling them. So like 10/10 recommend. These are, I use these on literally almost every wig that I style. I love these. Product. What kind of product do we use on wigs? Well, we can use all sorts of product on wigs. Most modern synthetic wigs are going to take standard hair product just fine. There are also wig-specific products. I tend to use a mix and match when I'm styling my wigs. For washing my wigs, I like to use a wig shampoo. Other folks like to use either a baby shampoo, a very mild, non-scented shampoo. All of those really work fine. I personally find that the wig specific shampoo that is designed for synthetic fibers tends to preserve them a little better and gets them a little cleaner, but you can also just use regular shampoo. The other thing to kind of take into consideration is if you're putting a lot of product onto your wigs and you want to strip that wig clean so you can completely restyle it differently, you're going to need to get all of that product out of the wig. Sometimes just washing it is going to be enough, but sometimes there's still going to be some residue in the wigs. So if you go into the hair shampoo section, there are shampoos that specifically are designed to strip product out of your hair. We can use those on wigs as well to kind of clean them down, get all of that extra product out so that you can start fresh. So that can be a helpful thing to have on hand as well, but shampoo of some sort. I like to use this spray-on conditioner and detangler. Like I said earlier, wigs, synthetic wigs especially, do tend to tangle very, very easily, especially anything that's going to be kind of brushing up against your neck, against your shoulders. Longer wigs, they tend to get tangled and matted underneath very, very easily. So this weave and wig conditioner and detangler is going to help you ease out those tangles and help you preserve the style of your wig and preserve your wig much more easily. So, and this stuff just makes it easier for you to comb through those tangles and ease them out very, very gently. I love this stuff. This particular brand comes in all sorts of scents. This is pomegranate. It's lovely. I also use lime quite a bit. Let's see what else we got. Sprays. So when we are finished styling our wigs, we're going to want to spray them down in some form or fashion. You can either use just kind of a standard hairspray. I do use ye old Aquanet quite a bit. Love that 1980s scent. And then you can also use a synthetic hair wig spray. Either one works just fine. When we're spraying down our wigs, we don't want to spray so much hairspray on them that they're solid, that they're crunchy. We want to give them a light spray just like we would with our hair. We want to treat them like our hair. The synthetic spray, I find, tends to wash out a little easier, but the Aquanet is perfectly fine in a pinch. It generally washes out just fine. So you can get the wig spray. Typically, you're going to have to go to a beauty store, to a specific wig store. Aquanet, you can get anywhere. So, you know, you do you. Let's see. Hair gel. Hair gel can be really, really useful and really useful as a styling tool. Again, I like the Suave, the Aquanet, the inexpensive ones. You don't need to get like the super, super expensive stuff. The inexpensive stuff tends to work just fine for the synthetics. So hair gel is really good to have on hand. And then if you're going to be using curlers, if you're going to be heat setting your wigs in any form or fashion, you're going to want a setting spray. And we'll go over how to use this when we actually put some curlers in a wig, show you how to do that. But the setting spray is something that you put on before you put the curler on the hair and it's going to help that curl set a little more solidly. So you can get a nice firm set on your curls. They're gonna last a little longer if you use the setting spray. So highly recommend that. And then the last thing I like to have on hand is a spray bottle with 91% alcohol, the rubbing alcohol. This is really, really useful for touching up wigs, and we'll go over that in just a second. But this is a really useful tool for that. The other kind of random things that you're going to want to have on hand, Topstick. This is a very, very old-timey product, but it's pretty fantastic. You can get this at most, again, beauty supply stores. You can order it online. But essentially, it is little strips of double-sided tape. And these little strips of double-sided tape are really, really useful to help secure wigs on folks who may have hair loss. So if they have a receding hairline that you're putting a wig on top of, Topstick can really help kind of keep that down in place. It can also help kind of keep down little sideburny bits of the wigs as well. So I do like having Topstick in my kit. And then you're going to want to have wig caps, hair nets, and this is something I've just started using personally, which I'm probably going to start using it for the stuff that we do here as well. This is kind of a elastic silicone wig band. I'll show you how that goes on once we actually start putting on the wigs. But when we're talking about wig caps, so once we set our hair to put the wig on, before we put the wig on, we're going to put a wig cap over our personal hair. And we do this for a couple of different reasons. First off, it's going to protect the wig from any styling product, any oils that your hair may have. So it's going to kind of preserve the inside of the wig, keep it more fresh. And the other thing that the wig cap does is that it helps hold all of your hair down and hold it all in place so that the wig is going to go on easier. And with wig caps, we see primarily two different types. The first type is going to be kind of this looser fishnet type of wig cap. And then the other type is going to be a solid nylon, kind of like a pantyhose style stocking cap. And so there are pluses and, again, pluses and minuses on both of these. The fishnet style wig caps, they tend to be cooler. If you or your actor is heat sensitive, this is probably going to be your best option. And these are also much easier to pin through because they have lots of holes in them already. So this is kind of my favorite. I like this personally, but if you have a lot of hair or your actor has a lot of hair that we need to squish down, we need to condense down before we put the wig on, this nylon style wig cap is going to be your better bet because this is much more solid and it's going to compress that hair much more easily. You're going to get a much smoother fit on your wig if you have a lot of hair, if you use one of these nylon wig caps. So wig caps. And then the last thing that I like to have in my kit is just going to be spirit gum and spirit gum remover, because spirit gum is gross. You need the remover to take it off. So when we're putting on wigs, there may be times where you want to add a little bit of spirit gum at that hairline underneath the lace to keep that lace nice and smooth across the forehead and to help secure the wig a little more. Spirit gum is it's kind of a figure out if you actually need to use it sort of thing. You don't want to use it in any circumstances where your actor is going to be changing wigs, or where you're going to be changing wigs. It is a little, it's sticky and it's kind of gross, and you're not going to be able to take those wigs off quickly and easily. But if you have a wig that's being problematic, if it's not staying on the head quite as well as you want it to, or if that lace is just not sitting nicely across the forehead, using a little bit of spirit gum is going to be a really, really helpful tool for you. And then you're going to need the spirit gum remover to take off the spirit gum at the end of the night. Spirit gum just doesn't come off with soap and water. It's very solid, so you need the spirit gum remover. And then I like to use a little brush and little foam triangles to apply that. And we'll go over that in just a second. So care and handling of wigs. First, we're gonna talk about how to hold a wig, because these wigs are delicate creatures. They like to be cared for. They like to be held gently. They don't like to be roughed around. They don't like to be jammed down on foam heads. They like to be handled carefully. So, oh God, I hate that noise. When we're taking the wig off of the wig head, you want to make sure that you are removing any pins that are holding it in place. And typically when I'm setting a wig or when I'm styling wig, I'm going to pin it, block it onto the head by pinning down the temples and the center of the forehead, and usually one kind of at the top of the head for the hard front wigs. And we'll go over blocking a lace front wig in just a minute. You want to make sure that all the pins are taken out so you can lift the wig off nice and carefully. I like to lift by reaching underneath the temples. I'm going to try to do this from the back. So I'm going to reach underneath the temples. Turn her around here. And getting underneath the wig and just working my fingers up to the crown of the wig. And so when we're holding our wigs, we don't want to hold it by the hair. We don't want to grab the hair. We don't want to mess with the style at all. We want to make sure that we are holding it nice and gently. We're holding it generally how it's going to sit on the head so the style does not fall out, so we don't mess the style. And we want to make sure that we're holding it so that we're not going to, again, mess with that style. So we're going to hold that nice and gently. And then putting it back on the wig head is going to be the same thing. We're going to start from the front. We're going to kind of gently pull the back down and then reposition her on that wig head as she would be sitting on the head. When you're repositioning the wig on your foam head, you want to make sure that you're not, I see this a lot, want to make sure you're not catching any hair, because what tends to happen is, somebody just finished a 2.5-hour performance, they're really tired, they want to go home, they take the wig off their head and they just kind of slam it down onto the wig head. And what that does is that's going to catch the hair underneath that front, it's going to catch the hair under the sides, and it's going to mess up your style. And so the trick with handling wigs is that we always want to treat them delicately so that we preserve the style as much as possible so that your actor looks fantastic when they go on stage. Nobody wants to go on stage with a messy wig. So the more gently we learn how to handle our wigs, the nicer our actors are going to look when they go on stage. So that is handling a wig. Storing a wig. There are lots of different ways to store a wig. Here, because we tend to use kind of mid-range wigs, none of our wigs are terribly expensive. We kind of buy the mid-range. So they're nice, but they're not really nice, which is fine. It's great for stage work. So we tend to wash them, and we'll go over that in just a second. We tend to wash them and then to store them so that the hair doesn't get tangled up. We tend to flip them inside out, kind of assuming that we're going to have to reset it anyway for the next actor, and roll it into a little taco, trying to fit as much of the hair into the wig as possible. You don't want to squish it down, you don't want to like compress it, but we just want to put as much of that hair into the wig as possible so that it's not going to get tangled on itself. For us, this works really great because we store the wigs in drawers, and it's just going to keep them kind of nice and even. It's going to keep them from getting all tangled and mixed up. If you are storing wigs at home, if you're storing your own personal collection, you can legit just store them on your foam heads. That is going to be the best way to store them to preserve the style. And if you do that, you might want to put a bag or put a pillowcase over them so that they don't get dusty, but storing them on the wig head is absolutely fine. The other way that you can store wigs, this is how I store my personal wigs at home, is I will legit take my wig cap and use that as a hairnet to very carefully kind of bag up the wig so that I am preserving as much of that style as possible and keeping that really intact. No, this one doesn't really fit. The other thing that you can use is most wigs are going to come with a hairnet. When you purchase a wig, it's going to come with a hairnet, and you can use that on top of your wig as well. I am manhandling this wig more than I should be, but here we go. So that can be a really nice way to very gently store your wigs. You want to store your wigs flat or on the head. You want to store them so that they're not all squished up together. You want to give them a little bit of breathing room because, again, we're going to try to preserve as much of that curl, as much of that style as possible. So the next time we use it, we just have to freshen it up. We don't have to completely reset it. So you want to give it some space to breathe. But having some sort of a net over it, whether it's the wig cap, whether it's a hairnet, is going to help those fibers from getting tangled up in each other. And you're going to have a much nicer wig when you pull it out again to wear it. All right, so let's pull our little friend out here and talk about washing wigs, which is always a big question. So I'm going to grab my bucket of water. Be right back.
Vanilla is asking, is there a good way to pre-treat a long wig to discourage matting where it rubs against the body?
Oh, yeah, that's a hard one. I tend to use a lot of that leave-in conditioner. So this conditioner and detangler works really well if you kind of give that underside a really, really good coating. Any sort of leave-in conditioner, leave-in detangler underneath that kind of nape of the neck is going to help you with that. But with the longer wigs, it really is if you wear it daily or if you're wearing it for shows, it tends to be a wear-to-wear maintenance, just kind of combing out and detangling that space underneath the neck, whatever's kind of brushing against your back. It's not the best. But using a leave-in conditioner, a leave-in detangler is going to help that immensely. So that's what I would recommend. All right, so washing our wigs. So for your personal wigs, you're going to wash them on an as-needed basis. And that, again, is going to depend on how you're wearing them, what you're wearing them for, if you're wearing them outside or if you're doing outdoor performance, that sort of thing. They're going to get more dusty, they're going to get more dirty, so they're going to need to be washed more frequently. If you're just wearing them on kind of an occasional basis for Halloween or for parties or that sort of thing, you may not need to wash them as much. So you can tell when things are dirty, you can tell when things are gross, so you wash them as needed. For our actors here at NC State, we wash them at the end of each show run. We typically have 2-week runs, and that's about as long as you can go for wearing a wig for show purposes. If we had longer runs, when we do Theater Fest, we typically do have longer runs, and I will wash wigs and reset them. But when you wash a wig, you do have to reset it, so it's kind of a process. But we wash our wigs after the end of a run before we put it away, so that it's nice and fresh for the next time that we use it. And so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your wig and you're going to immerse it in warm water. You don't want your water to be too hot. You don't want it to be too cold. This is Goldilocks water. And so you're going to take your wig, you're going to immerse it in water, and you're not going to squish it. You're going to immerse it, and you're just going to very gently drop it down into the water and just kind of wave it back and forth so that it's soaked all the way through. And then get your shampoo ready. We're going to hold up our wig. We're just going to give a little squirt a shampoo right there at the crown. You don't want to use too much or else you're going to spend your entire life trying to wash that shampoo out. And then you're just going to very gently massage that shampoo through your wig. And what's really great about these synthetic wigs is that even though we're working through the curls here, once this wig dries, those curls are going to bounce right back into the style that they want to be in. You're not going to lose too much of your curl unless you completely do a heat reset style on it. So we're just going to wash through. We're going to very gently kind of massage. We're not going to scrub because that's just going to tangle up your hair. You're going to want to work with the grain of the hair, and you're just going to wash that through, trying to get out as much of the styling product in there as possible. And then you're going to want to make sure that, I'm just going to drop that in there for a second because I only have 2 hands. We're going to just put a little bit of shampoo on the inside and just give that a little squeeze, making sure that we're cleaning off all of the oils that may have built up in the wig cap and the laces there. All right, so once you have your wig all washed, see, we're just being very gentle here. We're going to drop it back in the water. And, whoop, I'm splashing water all over the place. And we're going to gently rinse out that shampoo. And if you have a lot of shampoo in there, you're probably going to need to replace your water, but you want to make sure you get as much of that out as possible. And again, we're not scrubbing, we're just kind of gently squeezing to get all of that water out. And then you want to give it a good gentle squeeze, get as much of the water out as possible. And I'm going to put that right there. I'm going to get my towel. So to dry your wig, again, we don't want to mess up the fibers. We don't want to wrap the fibers together. So we're just going to give it a little shake. Oh, no, I got water on my computer. That's fantastic. So we're just going to give it a little bit of a shake, and then we're going to lay it out on a towel to dry. If you have a lot of excess water in it, you can very gently roll the wig and give it a little squish. Just kind of let the towel absorb a lot of that water. Yeah, see, that's already a lot drier. And then typically I'm going to try to not restyle it when it's wet, but just make sure that the hair is going in the direction that it's supposed to be going. So make sure those curls are laying nice and straight. Make sure that your part is laying straight. You want the style to work with itself as much as possible as it dries. And then you're just going to lay it out on your towel and let it dry. So it's really easy. You can also put it on your foam head to let it dry. That's also an option. And then there are also wig dryers for larger shops that do a lot of wigs. There are actual boxes that they build that have kind of like a blow dryer that blows into a big wooden box, and that's going to dry the wigs very quickly. For our purposes and for most home purposes, just gentle washing, gentle hand washing, and letting it air dry is going to be just fine. So that's going to be washing your wig. And we're going to roll her up and put her aside now. All right, lost my notes. All right, so hair prep. I think hair prep is kind of the most challenging thing for people who are new to wearing wigs. What do you do with the stuff that's already on my head if I want to put something else on my head, right? So the trick with hair prep is that there's no one way to do it. You're going to have to experiment and find the way that works best for your hair and your head. You're going to want to find the thing to do that is going to get your hair as close to your skull as possible and keep it as flat as possible. So you don't want to have a lot of bulk on your head. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that we can work around this. I'm going to show you what I do for my hair, which is fluffy but thin and shoulder length. So it looks like I have a lot of hair, but when I kind of condense it down, it tends to be very, very fine. So I don't have too much of a problem getting my hair down under a wig. And then I've got a wig over here that I'm going to show you a couple of techniques for getting thicker hair or bulkier hair underneath a wig. If you are an actor of color, or if you have an actor of color who has natural hair, we typically are going to recommend that they put their hair in a protective style for the duration of a show. That's going to get their hair as close to their head as possible. And those protective styles they're going to protect the hair so that their personal hair doesn't get damaged, and it's going to keep everything really condensed as flat as possible so that they can wear the wigs. So that's definitely something to take into consideration as well, and have those conversations with your actors and with any of your actors. You can talk about what's going to work best for them and how we can help each other out, because we all want to look awesome on stage. So, all right, so kind of the traditional method of prepping your hair for wigs is doing pin curls. And for most styles, you're going to want to use pin curls in a couple of strategic places, even if you're doing something else kind of in the back to flatten things out. But we want to make sure that we have contact points so we can pin the wig to our head. And so those contact points are going to be really important. You're going to want to put a contact point on kind of what we call the antenna points. Like, imagine if you were a bug or an alien and you had antenna growing out of your head, you're going to want a contact point there. You're going to want a contact point kind of at the crown of your head, a contact point at the base of the head, kind of where the neck meets the head, and then contact points at the temples. Everything else is up to kind of personal preference. So to do a pin curl, you're going to need your bobby pins. This is why they come in giant packs of 300, because you go through these like crazy. All right. And I have my mirror here, so excuse me if I'm not looking directly at y'all. And then you're going to want to use your comb or your brush. Curly hair people know that you don't typically comb curly hair, but it's kind of necessary for this. So here we go. So you're going to comb out your hair as much as possible. You want to get any tangles out of it. And also something to take into consideration, if you're going to be wearing wigs for a show or for Halloween or whatever, it's actually better to have your hair a little dirty. So doing the pin curls, putting a wig on clean hair. When hair is clean, it tends to be slicker and tends to slide around more. So that can be, the wig can kind of flop around on your head. So if your hair has a little product in it, if it's a little dirty, the wig is actually going to stay on your head better. So, yeah, there we are. So I'm going to part my hair down the center. I'm just going to stick the side here for now. And I'm going to do my antenna pin curls first. And I can take a pretty big chunk out of my hair because you can see, even though it's super fluffy, it condenses down really, really easy. And so for a pin curl, you're going to want to simply curl the hair into a little spiral that sits straight up against your skull. And so the trick with these is that you want to get them as flat as possible against your skull. Some folks will twist before they do the pin curl because it makes it easier to handle. But if you have thick hair, doing a twist and then doing that pin curl is going to add a lot more bulk. And you can even see, even though I have kind of thin hair, that's already adding a lot of bulk to it. So if you can, you're going to want to do that little cinnamon roll, do that little twist there, and then you're going to take 2 bobby pins. And go through that pin curl in an X pattern. So you can see that is nice and flat on my head, and it has a nice little X holding that in place. So I'm going to do one at my other antenna. I'm gonna do this really quickly. And so, like everything else, it takes practice. Wearing wigs it's a skill. It's something that you need to practice. And setting your hair for it is really kind of one of the more challenging pieces to it. So I'm going to do my little side pin curls here real quick. And then I'm not going to set the rest of my hair because we are running low on time already. I never have enough time for these webinars. All right. And so the reason why we want these pin curls at these specific places is that we're going to actually pin into them when we put the wig on our head. That's going to give us the stability that we need to keep this wig on our head. All right, and I'm just going to wrap the rest of my hair back here and just have it flat against my head and hold it with a couple of bobby pins because I have really thin hair and I can do that, and that makes me a little sad, but here we are. All right, so once you have your hair prepped, we've got our antenna points. Ooh, want to make sure everything is up and out. All right, so if you have, you can see I've got these little kind of baby hair sideburns going on here. I've got a little bit of baby hairs around my face here. If you have anything like that, this is going to be where you want to use a little bit of a hair gel or a little bit of hairspray, and you don't have to use too much, but you want to slick that back as much as possible. So you want to try to get all of those little baby hairs out of the way, especially if your wig is of a different color than your natural hair. And if you can't get all of those little baby hairs out of the way, you do have a couple of different options. So I have dark hair. If I'm wearing a blonde wig, especially if it's a hard front wig, having kind of that natural hairline can be really, really challenging. So what you can do is you can actually use some makeup. You can use some foundation, or you can use a little bit of hair color like paint on hair color, and just apply a little bit of it right to that front hairline or right to the little sideburns, so that even the stuff that's sticking out is going to blend in a little more easily than, like I said, if I was wearing a blonde wig, my dark hair against that blonde wig, if I had a little bit of dark hair coming out, that wouldn't look natural. But covering it up with a little lighter paint in hair color, a little foundation, any sort of stage makeup, something like that, that you can just kind of brush into your hair, can help make that transition look a little more natural. So once you have your hair prepped, the next thing you want to do is put on your wig cap. And so with the wig cap, you're not going to want to put it on so that it is over your forehead like this. We're actually going to push it just slightly back from that hairline, and we're going to get as much hair up in it as possible. And so again, I've got these little baby hair sideburns that always give me fits. but we're just going to pull it back just a scooch. So we don't want to risk that wig cap line peeking out from under our wig. So we're going to push that back just a scooch. And then we're going to secure the wig cap, again, with more bobby pins. We use a lot of bobby pins with wigs, y'all. And so I tend to secure it at the temples and at the back, at the base. So I'm going to pin straight up. And that's where having that little pin curl in the back is really, really helpful. And then if it feels like it's maybe not quite as secure as you want it to be, you can actually put a bobby pin through that pin curl that you put at the top of your head as well. So you want that wig cap to be nice and secure. I talked about at the beginning these little silicone bands. I've just started using these. They're pretty cool. They go on much like a kind of a workout headband. And what's nice about these is that they have just a little bit of a silicone base to them so that the wig is going to catch on that as well. It can add a little bit of extra protection, but you also have to be kind of careful about positioning it around the pin curls. So we're gonna take that off for now. All right, so how do you put on a wig? I'm gonna use my little friend here. This is one of my personal wigs. She gets quite a bit of use. I love her. We're gonna take a look at the anatomy of a wig. And oh yeah, and the person who asked the question about how do you manage kind of the tangling under here, again, just care and maintenance. You wanna make sure that you put that leave-in conditioner as much as possible, and you wanna just make sure that you comb her out every time you wear it. So let's look at the inside of this wig real quick. So some of the things that you're going to kind of keep an eye open for, because a lot of wigs are actually gonna have combs already sewn into them, and these are gonna be really great to kind of help secure the wig. Wigs are going to have these little, they never wanna come out when you want them to, but they always come out when you don't. Oh, for Pete's sake. There we go. These little straps that go around the back of the head. And you can use these to adjust kind of the tension across the back of the head here. So if somebody has kind of a larger head circumference, whether they have a larger head or they have more hair to compress, you can loosen these up. If they need to be tighter, you can make them a little tighter, and there are little hooks all the way along, sorry y'all, all the way along the back of the wig that's going to hook that in. And again, it doesn't work when I want it to work. There we go. All right. And then this particular wig has combs on either side, on either side. And this is a lace front wig. I've cut the lace really, really short on this one because the lace does not match my skin tone. And I don't feel like putting makeup on it all the time. So that lace is cut pretty short. And so when we're putting on wigs, what we're going to do is we're going to position the front of the wig across our forehead here, and then we're going to gently pull back. So if you're putting a wig on an actor, or if you're helping somebody else put on their wig, you can have them hold up two fingers, and they're going to hook that front of the wig on their fingers to kind of give you a little bit of tension as you're pulling it back over the head. When you're doing it on yourself, you have to provide that tension for yourself. The things you want to make sure you're being careful of as you're putting it on, that you're being very gentle with the lace. If it's a lace front wig, you don't want to damage that too much. You're going to want to make sure that the back of the wig, generally where the tag is going to be centered at the base of your neck. And you want to make sure that the sides of the wig are going to sit at your temples, at the little sideburns there. And so all we're going to do is we're going to, I'm going to position the front of the wig right across my forehead here. And I'm going to hold onto that as I pull it back across my head. And here I'm going to have to pull on the little sideburny things. There we go. And position. Like so. And so here you can see that my hairline is a little far back. So I'm just going to pull that forward. And you want to make sure that everything is positioned properly. So once you get it positioned on your head, now is when we're going to secure the wig. Yeah, that looks about straight. Secure the wig to our head. So here I'm going to actually use those little combs that are in the wig and tuck those up into my hair. And that's going to help secure it quite a bit. So we've got those. And now I'm going to use my bobby pins. I'm going to use those big bobby pins we talked about way back at the beginning. And I am going to pin into my pin curls here. So remember, I've got my 2 antenna points, and you can feel them underneath your wig there. And I'm going to go through the wig and pin directly into that pin curl. Like so. There we go. And I'm going to do that on all of the points that we created with our pin curls. Yeah.
Laura, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it better to keep the wig on your head if you have a lot of movement? Is it better to pin in a particular direction to help secure it, or is it just add more pins?
If you do an X with the pins at the back, at the base, and at the crown, like we do with the pin curls, that's going to keep it pretty secure. Those are going to be your key security points, and then everything else is going to be more just aesthetics. So making sure that the sideburns stay down where they're supposed to, making sure that everything else stays where it needs to. But if you do an X with the big bobby pins at that crown pin curl and at that base pin curl, it's going to stay pretty solid. So that is actually what I have done here. I'm going to pull this down just a little bit. And so once it's on your head, then you can touch up the style if you need to, if it's something that you can touch up. If it's a pre-styled wig, you know, just kind of give it a little spritz, give it a little fluff. Make sure it's going to stay where it wants to stay. This may not have been the best wig. This is a big wig. There we go. But that is basically how you're going to put on your wig. And so with those pin curls, with pinning through the pin curls at the antenna points, doing the big X at the top of the head, doing the big X at the base of the head, and making sure that you're using those combs that are inside the wig, this little friend is really not going anywhere. I could do a lot with this wig on. So that's the general basics of how to put on a wig. And with the time that we have left, I'm going to go over a few tricks and tips for folks who have longer hair or who have thicker hair. So let me go grab my model here. So as you can see, this particular person, our little friend here, she has an awful lot of hair. So if we did pin curls all over her head with all the hair that she has, we're gonna have a lot of bulk back here. And the worst thing that you can do is to have a lot of bulk when you're putting on a wig, because it's going to distort the shape of the wig. It's going to be a lot more uncomfortable. It can cause headaches So keeping the hair as flat as possible is really going to be key. So what we can do if somebody has long hair or has a lot of hair is instead of doing pin curls all over the head, we can do pin curls at our key points. So if you do it at your antenna points, do it at the top of the head and do it at the base of the head. And then with the rest of the hair, see if I can do this backwards. If we do this sideways, if we do a pair of loose braids, and we're gonna just very, very loosely, again, if we do it too tight, it's not going to lay flat. It's going to cause ridges. But if we do loose braids and then wrap those braids around the crown of the head, that's going to give us a much flatter surface for the wig to attach onto. So you can see that this is a really loose braid, but because it's loose, it's going to lay flat, especially underneath the wig cap. This is where our little elastics come in handy. All right, and we're going to do that on the other side here. I don't know if y'all can hear that noise, but they're doing some sort of work down the hall. All right, so once you have your braids intact, now what we're going to do is we're going to use our little snap clips that we talked about way back at the beginning. I'm going to use the gold ones so they're nice and visible. So we're going to use our snap clips, and we are going to just pin those braids around the back of the head towards the front in kind of a crown shape. Yeah, I think so. There tends to be the most space in a wig kind of at the base of the neck, and that's also where if we need to expand out a wig, if we need to make a wig bigger, that's going to be the easiest place to do it. So if we have to have a lot of bulk in our hair, shifting it towards the bottom is going to be our best bet. And so it's the same thing as with the pin curls, is that we want to secure these braids as much as possible. So we're going to use a lot of these snap clips, because when we attach the wig to the head, we're going to secure it through these braids, as well as the pin curls that we put at strategic points. So just for demonstration purposes, that's all I'm going to do. But depending again on the thickness of the person's hair, or kind of how it's laying on the head, you may want to use more snap clips. You can also use bobby pins, whatever is going to be comfortable and whatever is going to help the hair lay flat on the head. And once that hair is laying flat on the head, for somebody who has longer hair like this, I would use the nylon cap here. And we can go ahead and get that on over all of this hair. Again, doing this backwards is really hard, y'all. Oops, lost the snap clip. And we're going to get that all squished up in there, like so. So you can see we got a lot of hair condensed down relatively quickly into a pretty solid little mass here. That feels like it would be comfortable to put a wig on top of it. The bulk of the braids are going to be down here. That's going to be where the wig is going to have the most space. And again, from here, we would use our bobby pins. We're going to secure the wig cap to the hair. And this is going to be where pinning through the nylon wig cap. But yeah, so with a little more bobby pins and a little more securing, she would be ready to go. So those are two very different sort of forms of prepping the hair. Some folks can and like to do the pin curls all over the head. Some folks are going to prefer the braids wrapped loosely around the head. You're going to find the method that works best for you with your hair thickness and texture and length to keep the hair as flat on the head as possible. That's really the key. How it gets there is entirely up to you. You want to keep it as flat as possible and have those pinning points so we can secure the wig onto the head so that it's not going to fall off.
Laura, how long would you recommend if you've got an actor who hasn't used wigs before, hasn't prepped their hair before, how much in advance of performances do they need to be working with this?
I send out information about wig prep with the initial kind of welcome email, and I do recommend that actors experiment with it before they get into first dress rehearsal. I wish I had time. I generally don't have time to kind of do a class or a seminar before we go into first dress. But there are tutorials, there are resources online. I have a Pinterest page that I send out to our student actors with various types of methods of prepping your hair for wigs. And hopefully this will be one of them. So we'll get this online and we can share this information with them as well. But it does take practice. So, you know, I would say like the week before, go ahead and, you know, spend a Thursday night or Friday morning or whatever and practice putting your hair, up. If you're a university theater student, if you need to borrow a wig cap to practice with, you know, you can come and see me. We can make sure that you have the resources available to you. But it is a skill that does require practice. So I would not recommend trying it out on first dress.
Laura, do you want to take a moment and go back through the 3 books that you were recommending?
I can, absolutely. All right, so the first one was Wig Making and Styling by Martha Rukowski and Allison Lowry. The second one, the one Nicole was asking after, is 18th Century Hair and Wig Styling, and the author is Kendra Von Cleve. And I'm honestly not 100% sure that this one is on Amazon or not, but her website is www.18thcenturyhair.com using the numbers 18.
Recommendations for rescuing a really badly tangled wig.
Patience, a lot of patience. Depending on the style, if it's a straighter wig or a wig that has kind of looser curls, you can go in and gently wet it and work conditioner through it to try to detangle all of that mess. Again, this leave-in conditioner detangler is super useful. And when you're detangling a wig, you want to work from the bottom up. So if you start down here, if you start up here and you're combing down, all you're doing is you are pushing those mats down further and further on top of each other, so that by the time you get down here, you are just in a giant matted rat's nest. If you start from the bottom and work your way up, those tangles kind of have some place to go. So that's going to be a little easier to work through. But detangling it just takes a lot of patience, takes a lot of conditioner. And some wigs honestly are unsalvageable. If it's a kind of Party City costume wig, those tangle super easily. And once they get Tangled, they tend to be really, really challenging to untangle. But if you work from the bottom and work your way up, give it a little spray with our conditioner, that is going to go a long way. So it takes time and takes patience. Any other questions?
You heard about using a laundry fabric softener on wigs.
I have personally never done it. I have heard that people do it. I haven't found the need to experiment with it because the actual hairstyling products have worked well for me. If anybody has any experience using fabric softener on wigs, I would love to hear about that. I have heard that it's done, but I just haven't experimented with it.
And then one more, curl setting synthetic wigs, use hot water or no? Vanilla has used it on extensions, but never on a whole wig.
So yes, so hair extensions are typically going to be the same fibers as synthetic wigs, in the same fiber family at least. So if you've had success using hot water on extensions, that's going to work well with wigs. We didn't get to it, but when we are putting curlers into wigs, we actually use hot steam to help set those curls. So hot water, as long as it's not boiling, should be fine. Well, thank you all so much. We will definitely revisit wigs in the spring because we legitimately did not get through half of what I wanted to talk about. So next spring, we'll go through some wig styling basics. We'll pull out those curlers. We'll do some wig cutting. We'll learn how to stack wigs. So if you enjoyed this, please keep an eye out for what we're going to be offering in the spring because I guarantee we'll be revisiting wigs. So thank you for joining us.